Hello, and welcome to our presentation, What Next? An update from Saving Ukrainian Cultural Heritage Online. My name is Anna Kijas. I'm a music librarian at Tufts University and also a co-founder of Saving Ukrainian Cultural Heritage Online. Today, I'm presenting with Andreas Segerberg from the University of Gothenburg in Sweden and Quinn Dombrowski from Stanford University. I'll start with a little recap of what SUCHO is. We were formed on March 1st of 2022, and we are a global grassroots initiative of over 1,500 volunteers. Our main goal was to web archive and support digital preservation of Ukrainian cultural heritage institutions. And these efforts were mainly because we saw a need to help prevent these websites from going offline, whether due to damaged servers, missile attacks, or other malicious activity. Since March of 2022, we have web archived more than 5,400 websites and over 50 terabytes of data. We have also been partnering with educators and scholars and working on promoting and making visible the cultural heritage of Ukraine through efforts such as the gallery, and we've been collecting political memes as well. Our volunteers include librarians, archivists, historians, programmers, researchers, and technologists from over 38 countries. We have also been raising funds to help provide digitization equipment to institutions in Ukraine and have so far raised over 200,000 euros and provided a little over 34 individual requests to Ukrainian institutions. You can learn more by going to sucho.org. There are a number of organizations that have been tracking the damage and the attack on Ukrainians' cultural heritage, including UNESCO and the Conflict Observatory. And this map here just shows the extent of the damage across different regions of Ukraine. The work that we have been doing with SUCHO is focused on the digital content, which is just as precarious and potentially at risk as the physical artifacts in these different regions. The 5,400 websites that we have web archived across Ukraine include content from institutions of all sizes, public and national libraries and archives, museums, universities, historical societies, music academies, as well as rural museums and religious institutions. The start of the SUCHO initiative, our focus was on archiving digital Ukrainian cultural heritage content. This digital content had been digitized before the invasion. We realized a few months in that there was still quite a lot of content that had not been digitized. And there was a need to help our colleagues in Ukraine by sending digitization equipment and other resources so that they could prioritize and scan materials in their collections. And so we moved into a new phase 2, that is defined by these 3 things: curate, donate, and educate. And during this phase, we began coordinating aid shipments of digitization hardware and other resources for Ukrainian cultural heritage institutions. We have been fundraising in order to raise the funding needed to purchase and send this equipment. And we have also been educating and raising awareness about Ukrainian cultural heritage and creating resources that can potentially be used to help train colleagues in Ukraine on best practices around digitization. The rest of this presentation will focus primarily on the curation aspect.
Hello, my name is Andreas Segerberg, and I'm going to talk a bit about the creation of web archives within SUCHO Phase 2. Before I dive into what we are doing and what we are planning to do in Phase 2, I want to do a brief recap of the Phase 1 of SUCHO web archiving. During Phase 1, we organized around this workflow consisting of 5 major steps: the discovery, prioritization, triage, capture, and quality control. The discovery part, from the start, we used a simple Google form for user submissions, but we also relied heavily on Wikidata and domain intelligence and map discovery. All these user submissions and the data that we collected was organized in a huge Google Sheet where volunteers could volunteer to archive a specific institutional website. So after phase 1, we did a migration of this enormous Google Sheet, and we moved it to a self-hosted instance of Baserow. Even though the use of Google Sheet was a key to successful coordination of our web archiving, so Baserow, which is an open source no-code database, offers more advanced features that are useful for us. For instance, it's possible to link tables and make custom views for public access, and so on. So I'm planning on show a little bit of how we are using Baserow. So from the Google Sheet, we have now tried to extract all the resources, like the web archives, and trying to link them to the institutions or authority records. We have basically from the late October 2022, a small group of volunteers started to merging, refining and normalizing this metadata that we had in the original Google Sheet, as well as from other sources. And we have also developed a small but good enough metadata schema that will help us link records between the SUCHO gallery, the SUCHO memes, and also other external resources like content that is in the Internet Archive or even the art loss registry and other databases of stolen art, as well as the Minister of Culture and Information Policy of Ukraine's registry over destroyed cultural heritage and recorded evidence of Russian aggression and war crimes. But the overall and most important purpose of the SUCHO catalog is finding and the retrieval of archived resources so they can be given back to Ukrainian institutions if they are lost. So here's an example of how Baserow is really nifty, that you can link stuff together. So, for instance, we have this this authority, this institution, the Charkiv Holocaust Museum. And you can see that we record some basic metadata of the location, both the name and the coordinates and district, and what kind of institution type it is, and then we link the actual resources. So we can have one-to-many or many-to-many relationships between tables. So here's an example of a linked resource. This data is also used as the base for an access software, which we are currently developing, which is like SUCHO Open Data. It's built on top of a heavily customized dataset instance. Dataset is also an open source project. that is really good for publishing and data and for the discovery. So here we have the same data that we had in base row, but published in datasets. We have the authority records or the institutions, where we could browse by institution types or districts. We can do searches within this table, and we could let's see if we have something here. We can see like the detailed view of this institution, the Museum of Dead Plains, and we can see that it's linked to Wikidata, and it has two collection web archives that were collected at different times. So if we want to view a detailed record of the web archive, we can do that, or if we want to access this resource, we can click here. But let's check the detailed page of this resource. Here we also have some basic metadata and the link back to the institution. We also still monitor the online status for every website to see if it's online or offline. This is not the full data because I'm using a development instance right now. But as you can see, this crash museum is currently offline and have been so for since February 27 this year. There's also an online status API if someone want to use that to do stuff. But we can access this resource either by the local or the web archive that is hosted by SUCHO, or you can also browse it through the Wayback Machine. But let's have a look on the SUCHO web archives. And here's the full archived website. So here's also some very early dashboard of some statistics and of what we have in the collections. Right now we are just publishing the ones that have cleaned metadata, that we have refined the metadata. So this is not the full resource records. I think there are probably 5,000, but 1,634 are now cleaned or linked to an authority record. As you can see by this little graph, we kind of peaked on doing web archives somewhere here in March and April 2002, which leads to my next thing that I want to talk about, which is revisit. Since a lot of content probably has been published since we did the first web crawling, we want to do revisits of all the websites that we have in our collections. And for sites that offer sitemap, where we can detect if the content is new, we will use that as a starting point, and crawl only the new content. A lot of sites, however, lacks this, and for these we apply a strategy of archiving the target URL and all of its outlinks, so it's like one hop from the start site. Since the majority of the websites are not very dynamic, of course they are the ones with 3D tools and the like, but they were captured manually during the phase 1, and we don't need to use, probably we won't need to use like sophisticated web archiving tools like browser tricks or the other tools in the web recorder family. So for this, we are probably going to use WeGet with the WAC output, which is a bit less resource intensive. And with that, I say thank you.
The areas we have been focused on is creating a gallery, exploring Ukrainian cultural heritage online. We have a group of volunteers that have been selecting and curating web archived content from the first phase of SUCHO and creating metadata to describe this content and make it visible on this Omeka website. The URL is gallery.sucho.org. Here's an example of the metadata for an item record in this gallery. When possible, we provide both text in Ukrainian and English so that it can be accessed and read by both English-speaking audiences and Ukrainian speakers. Kylie Joliker and Elena Sharafanenko spent quite a lot of time most recently in developing a controlled vocabulary for subject headings for the metadata. And all of the item records, now close to 200, have been updated to reflect the revised subject headings. All of our documentation and tutorials are available on the wiki, and you can find the link at the bottom of this slide. In addition to the metadata curation for the gallery, we have a group working on curating the content, the metadata, and the item information that was uploaded to Internet Archive. At the beginning of the SUCHO initiative, there was an effort to upload content to the Internet Archive, and you can see there's over 15,000 results in this collection for objects that were unable to be web archived or scraped or crawled easily using technology such as the Wayback Machine or other means. And so we uploaded this content directly to the Internet Archive into a collection. And since that time, we have been working to clean and curate the metadata in order to provide accurate descriptions of the content. And you can see a snapshot here from our spreadsheet where we have each item that has been uploaded to the Internet Archive with the title, the identifier, and the subject, and it's being curated and cleaned. We have, at this point, out of the 15,000 objects, we've whittled them down to about 6,200 that are actual objects and not entire websites, for example. And we have been curating the metadata for these objects. We have a little bit over 1,000 objects still left that need to be curated. And this work has been coordinated by Alex Wingate, and documentation and tutorials are also available on the wiki at the link at the bottom of the slide.
Hello, I'm Quinn Dombrowski, SUCHO co-founder and academic technology specialist at Stanford University. And I'm here to talk about what we've been doing with the meme wall and then share a few concluding thoughts for this presentation. So the SUCHO meme wall was developed by Anna Rakitianskaya, who's the Slavic librarian at Harvard, along with Simon Wiles, who's my colleague at Stanford Libraries. And the idea is that memes provide a unique perspective onto the war. Every single day, there are new memes that reflect people's interests, the changing course of the war, major events in the war, and all kinds of kind of different perspectives on what's going on as the war evolves. The memes are funny, the memes are poignant, and there's really more of them than anyone can hope to realistically capture. But we're trying, because unlike with the SUCHO web archives, where our primary goal is digital repatriation in the end, giving people back any data that they've lost, we see the SUCHO memes as a valuable resource for students today, historians of the future, the Ukrainian people in the future, as a way to show what people were talking about as part of this global internet discourse during the war. So all of our memes are hand curated and submitted to a forum, it's a Google form that's powering a Google Sheet that Anna Rakitianskaya goes through and makes sure that all of the memes have reasonable metadata, that they're on topic, that they're reasonably well tagged, that the text is written down and translated as needed, and then she approves them for publication to the wall. So every day we have new material on the meme wall, which is built using a static site generator from the Google Sheet data, and it automatically pulls in the new memes that Anna has approved. If you take a meme and you click on it, you can get a zoomed in view of it, as well as some of the basic metadata about it, including the text and the translation. You can also click to see the next meme on the wall. And if you click again, it will zoom back out. As we've gotten more memes, we've needed more robust ways to filter the content. So we have this toggle down menu where you can check a box and see everything that has been tagged that way. This is the beta version of our site. It probably will be the live version of our site by the time May rolls around. And we invite you to go to memes.sucho.org in order to view all of them. So in conclusion, this is not the presentation that we had hoped to give at this year's IIPC. When we presented last year, we had hoped that Ukraine would have emerged victorious from this war by this point, and we'd be well on our way to dealing with a whole new set of challenges, such as extracting the data from our WAC web archives, figuring out how to get in touch with everyone who owns these websites, and working with them in order to get them any data that they may have lost, helping them rethink and rebuild their websites in the sort of towards a future prosperous, independent Ukraine. That's not where we are today. The war is still ongoing, and there are still tremendous needs in Ukraine and the Ukrainian cultural heritage sector around digitization, around making things available online, and ensuring that the cultural heritage of Ukraine is preserved in many different forms for the future, both digital and physical. And to that end, we continue to raise funds for getting digitization equipment to Ukraine, working on training materials, doing webinars, and providing the resources that Ukrainian cultural heritage workers need to protect their cultural heritage in many different forms. So if you're interested in learning more or volunteering or donating, please go to sucho.org. And we hope to see you again next year at IIPC with another update to the project, which we hope will reach its completion before too long, once we're able to give the data back and the cultural heritage sector is in a position to rebuild. Thank you very much. Slava Ukraini.